In August 1892, a gruesome murder took place in Massachusetts. Andrew and his wife Abby Borden were found murdered in the home of the Bordens, one of the wealthiest families in the area, with their heads chopped off with an axe. The prime suspect in the case was Andrew Borden's daughter by his first wife Lizzie Borden. We have compiled the strange life story of murder and murder suspect Lizzie Borden for you. Lizzie, who lost her mother at an early age, lived with her father Andrew, stepmother Abby, older sister Emma, and Bridget, the only maid in the house. Lizzie, who was considered a spinster at her age, was in great distress because of the stinginess of her father, who was a man of considerable wealth. The neighbors took pity on Lizzie and Emma, and the sisters envied them, who were worse off than they were but lived a much more comfortable life. Lizzie was desperate to possess things that belonged to others, so much so that she began to steal small things from the shops she visited. Lizzie was a kleptomaniac and, contrary to what she thought, her father knew about it. Andrew Borden paid for the things Lizzie stole every month. Borden did not rub it in his daughter's face, especially when she liked to steal from the biggest shop in town, and he wanted her to be billed every month for what she stole. Andrew Borden was not well liked by those around him, largely because he was a miser. Despite this, he tried to cover up Lizzie's thefts, and never said a word about it to anyone. However, this man, who tolerated his daughter, ignored the needs of his home, and continued to live in almost primitive conditions. Andrew Borden was a retired businessman with a fortune of at least $500,000, not including their home. But the Borden household was like a slaughterhouse, without even a toilet. Feces were collected in buckets and then thrown out. Lizzie and Emma were very uncomfortable with this situation. They were forced to endure such a life when they could live in much more comfortable conditions. So they often fought with their father. One day the fight between the father and his daughters became so violent that the girls left the house, and did not return for a long time. Before the murder, there had been a major burglary at the house. While Lizzie, Emma, and the maid were in the house, a burglar broke in and stole $50,000, and some of the jewelry without anyone knowing. The fact that such a burglary took place in broad daylight while someone was home turned the spotlight on Lizzie. Lizzie's kleptomaniacal nature raised suspicions about her, but Andrew Borden covered it up, saying she had enemies. 2 days before the murder, something strange happened again. On August 2nd, Andrew and his wife Abby Borden woke up with abdominal pain, and called a doctor, claiming they had been poisoned. However, the doctor who came to examine them did not take this claim seriously, and thought that they probably had food poisoning due to the cheap food consumed at home. Moreover, no traces of poison were found in their bodies. The day after the incident, Lizzie went to the pharmacy to buy boric acid to use as an insecticide, but the pharmacist refused her request. This was one of the reasons why Lizzie was the prime murder suspect. Because it was thought that she might have wanted to poison her family. On August 3rd, Lizzie's own uncle, John Morse, came to visit the family. He wanted to discuss business with Andrew Borden, and consult with Andrew Borden about what to do about the Borden farm. In the evening of the same day, Lizzie went to see her neighbor Alice, and mentioned that suspicious people were hanging around the house. Lizzie feared that someone was trying to harm her father. On the day of the murder, Lizzie's uncle John and father Andrew had gone out early, leaving her stepmother Abby, the maid Bridget and Lizzie at home. Abby and Bridget were cleaning, and Lizzie was sitting in her room. Abby told Bridget, the maid, to go outside, wipe the windows and sent the young woman out. Maid Bridget stayed outside for about an hour. Andrew Borden returned home at around 11 p.m. Bridget, the maid, opened the door, at which point she heard what sounded like laughter from upstairs. Lizzie came downstairs and asked her father where her stepmother was, and he told her that there was news, and that Abby had gone out to visit a sick friend. Andrew then went and lay down on a couch while Lizzie went to the barn to get some fishing gear. When she returned she found a gruesome sight, her father lying on the couch with his head smashed in. Lizzie screamed for Bridget, the maid who was resting in her room, and the neighbors called the police. After the chaos, Abby's lifeless body was also found face down in her room. There were about 2 hours between the murders, and the murder weapon was an axe. An axe with a broken handle was found in the basement of the house, but it was not certain that this was the murder weapon either. After the funeral Lizzie was arrested, all the evidence pointed to her. Her sudden enthusiasm for fishing was puzzling. And his relationship with his stepmother and father was obvious. Lizzie, for her part, denied any involvement in the murders. Hiring two of the city's most famous lawyers to defend her in court, Lizzie suddenly became the center of media attention. Their neighbor Alice said that Lizzie burned a blue dress with red stains on it 3 days after the murders. This was allegedly the dress Lizzie was wearing on the day of the murders. But neither Lizzie's kleptomania, her relationship with her father, nor the blue dress that she burned in front of everyone, which she was not wearing on the day of the murders, were sufficient evidence. Because if Lizzie was a murderer, why did she burn the dress in front of everyone instead of burning it secretly? It defied logic. Lizzie said the dress was stained, and she burned it because the stains wouldn't come out. Moreover, Alice was a devout Catholic, and Lizzie knew she could not lie in court. Knowing this, it would have been absurd for her to attempt such a thing in front of her. The murder weapon was not incriminating to Lizzie either. The axe had no handle, so no fingerprints could be identified. Lizzie received support from many people during the trial. People didn't believe Lizzie was the murderer, and thought she should go free. At the end of the trial, Lizzie was found not guilty, partly because she did not have a lawyer at the first interrogation, and gave almost identical testimony. Lizzie lived the rest of her life on her family's inheritance, and donated the rest of her money to animal protection organizations. Who committed the murders remains a mystery.